Welcome. As we draw towards the end of another month, and they do seem to be flying by, we gather together in shared worship once more. You are welcome here, just as you are. I shall begin, as is our custom, by lighting our chalice flame, the symbol of our free Unitarian faith. And if you have a candle and you'd like to light it with me, then please do so. May our flame burn brightly for each one of us on this spring morning and for all beings. May it mark the beginning of our time in beloved community and be a symbol of our presence here, now, in this moment. And to bring ourselves into that greater presence, I invite you into a time of prayerfulness, a listening prayer. I'm hearing sounds outside right now. So begin by allowing yourself to settle in a position that's comfortable for you, but in which you are still awake. And take just a few deep breaths to bring yourself into this present moment. And begin by listening for any sounds outside. It might be traffic, it might be planes overhead, children playing, birds singing, the wind in the trees, whatever you can hear. And then bring your attention back indoors into the space in which you're sitting. Perhaps it's your living room, your kitchen, wherever you are right now. And listen again, this time to the sounds in this space. Maybe you can hear a clock ticking, the fridge whirring, someone else in the house or a pet moving around. Whatever you can hear, just notice it. And then turn your attention inwards, into yourself. What can you hear within? Your heart beating, perhaps? Your breathing? Your thoughts arising and disappearing? Simply notice whatever arises. The world goes on. Life continues around us and within us all the time. And we may discover with a little practice that when we're able to take time to pause, we're able to become aware of all that is happening, to notice it, and to let it be. May we find that what truly matters emerges from the silence, from the deep and hidden places of our hearts and souls, and that it blossoms into the light. May it be so. And so let us sing our first hymn this morning, which is number 33 in our green hymn books. It is Do You Hear? Number 33, Do You Hear? On Friday evening, I was involved with the opening worship for the General Assembly annual meetings, and I know that a few of you were also there. But I'd like to share the story that our friend Shana Begum shared then about a flower and its journey, and she very kindly has let me use her illustrations. So thank you, Shana. The story is the Lotus Flower. The flower is called a lotus flower, and it is a beautiful flower that can be found all over the world. But the flower isn't so beautiful to start with. It starts out under water, in lakes and ponds, where the water is still on the surface. But underneath, it's all muddy and mucky because of the fish and insects. It's quite dirty and rough down at the bottom of the water. The lotus flower is strong and manages to find its way through all this dirt and obstacles. It's only a stem with a few leaves and a small pod at this point. It continues to grow and slowly makes its way to the clearer surface. When the pod finally reaches the surface of the water, into clean air, at last it's free from the tough conditions below. Now the lotus can slowly open each petal to the sun and relax in the beauty around it. The flower is ready to take on the world. So although born into dark and murky conditions, the lotus grows and goes up against the difficulties. As the lotus opens each petal to the air, not a stain or spot of mud stays on the outside. The inner lotus has never seen any mud or dirty water. It is pure and bright and beautiful. Thank you to Shana for sharing her story and images. So in a little while, we're going to sing one of our probably most popular songs, which is Spirit of Life, which includes the words, roots, hold me close, wings, set me free. But first, I just wanted to say a few words about it. Spirit of Life was written by Carolyn McDade, the same hymn writer who wrote Come Sing a Song With Me, another one of our favourites. I was interested to discover that when in the early 1990s, the Unitarian Universalist Association approached her to ask if they could include Spirit of Life in their new hymn book, because it had become really popular. Carolyn was reluctant. She said, I thought of it as a living prayer, not a hymn. I don't feel like a hymn writer. But eventually she did agree, but only when it was included in the hymn book under the heading of love and compassion, rather than under the heading worship. Claire Hewerdine, who's the daughter of Dot and John, daughter-in-law, I should say, of Dot and John, who some of you know, has spoken about how her Unitarian faith and values have informed the way she brings up her own children. And in the book, Living with Integrity, she wrote, my granny once said to me that the key to bringing up children is giving them firm roots and strong wings. If you manage to do that, then you've done a good job. She was an Anglican, like most of my recent ancestors, although I can't remember her talking much about religion. I do, however, remember those words that she said to me as if it was yesterday, possibly because they're also in one of my favourite hymns, Spirit of Life. If I had to sum up my own theology, maybe I should just show people the words of that hymn. So I'm going to invite you now to sing Spirit of Life as it was intended, not as a hymn, but as a prayer, as a call to the heart, from the heart, to the Spirit of Life to come unto us. And then afterwards, we'll take a few moments of silence for our own prayer and reflection.
Spirit of life, come.
So when Maria Stevenson, I don't know if she's on Zoom today, but she quite often joins us on Zoom or sometimes on Facebook. When she heard that the theme of this service was going to be about reaching for the sky, she said, "I couldn't help but send you this. I wanted to share it with you." This is called Sky Orchestral, drawn and then painted by Maria. And personally, I love the sense of lightness and movement in what I'm taking to be the solar system, spinning and orbiting, but which could also be balloons or maybe bubbles, floating or rising. I love the patterns they're making in relation to each other, which clearly have order to them and yet also a great sense of spaciousness and playfulness, of dark and light and transparency. So thank you, Maria, for letting me share that this morning. When I thought about what it might mean to me to reach for the sky, words like hope, aspiration, potential, lightness, all came to mind. And not in terms of trying to achieve success or recognition, whatever they mean, but in terms of touching that sense of freedom and possibility. I have often felt elation when I've been physically high up, like climbing a cliff on the coastal path or walking in the snow-covered Dolomites in Italy, or once in a tiny plane soaring and dipping above Victoria Falls. Scary but exhilarating. Up there where the air is colder and thinner and the busyness and cares of the world seem small and far away, there's a feeling of being less encumbered by material things and worries, and of being more at large with the spirit. And yet, of course, in order to reach for the sky, we still need to be rooted in the earth. I've previously mentioned the fir tree that grows in my next-door neighbour's garden. In fact, I recently discovered it's a Himalayan cedar, Cedrus deodara, if you like to know the Latin names for plants. And I was quite delighted by this information, a Himalayan cedar in Peveril. And also to learn that the tree is considered to be sacred in Hinduism. And I mention this tree because though it's ended up in a humble urban garden in Plymouth, it still reaches for the sky. Each year, a little more growth upwards. I love that tree more and more with each passing year. It's currently providing a home to a pair of nesting magpies. Later in the summer, it will offer food to swarming bees. And all year round, it gives freely of its shade and peacefulness, its greenery, and its lifefulness. I worry about it when the winds blow, but so far it's survived all the storms. And I worry too that it doesn't seem to produce any cones, which apparently is possibly a sign of stress in conifers. But mostly it inspires me. It's strong and flexible. Its softly falling branches are full of grace, and the bright tips of its new spring growth are joyful and hopeful. All year, it's a grounded presence in what often seems to be a mad world, and seems to demonstrate perfectly how to live with what you've been given and make the best of it. It's entirely committed to being rooted, deeply rooted in the earth, exactly where it is, while also reaching for the sky in whatever ways it can, and being a blessing to all around it as it does so. I bumped into another neighbour the other day who lives several doors further down the street. I don't know him well, but we always smile and say hello. This time, though, I was surprised because he stopped and he obviously wanted to chat. He told me that he and his wife had both caught COVID several months ago, but he was only just now beginning to feel better. For all this time, he'd only been able to work in the mornings, finding himself exhausted and unable to concentrate by the afternoon. He said he felt he was finally emerging, not only from the illness, but from a difficult time that had also included the death of his mother. It seemed as though his period of sickness and confinement and bereavement had made him want to open up, to come out into the sun, lotus-like. Earlier I mentioned the General Assembly worship service on Friday, and there I offered a few words on the theme of recovery and renewal, which was the theme of the service. And I'll just share some of those again here because they seem relevant as we are preparing ourselves to come out of lockdown. The way ahead is going to be a very different journey for each of us. It will be our journey with its own twists and turns, its own disappointments and delights. There is no neat path to plot, no clear route out or forwards, no handy app or manual to download. But that's okay, because what we have instead are the timeless gifts of our soul's yearnings and the ancient wisdom of sages, and together they will guide us better still. And we have the ability, if we're brave enough, to look with searing honesty at the reality in which we find ourselves, however murky and difficult, however chaotic and uncertain it may be, and to make our peace with it. We have our remarkable human instinct to hope, and hope again, and to envision what might yet be. We know well how to dream, how to imagine, and how to find ways, great and small, to bring beauty and kindness, love and justice into this hurting world. Opportunities to do so are constantly being revealed to us. The world offers itself up to your imagination, as Mary Oliver puts it. And we also have that miraculous lotus-like capacity to root ourselves in what is, while leaning and growing towards the light that calls us, somehow trusting that what we need will be provided, even if not quite in the way we'd expected, and that the way ahead will unfold in its own sweet time, like petals opening one by one. It seems to me that life endlessly shows us way to make sense of our lives and of our suffering, how to use it, how to draw on it, and how to continue to move forward. The lotus flower shows how we can transcend our worries and difficulties to reach the light. The Himalayan cedar illustrates well how we can adapt to and make the best of whatever situation we find ourselves in. And my neighbour reminded me how, as we slowly recover from illness and sadness and lockdown, we can perhaps feel newly emboldened, enough to risk opening up and reaching out just a little more. May we each find the strength to sit with our dark times and the strange and the lost times, and trust that we too will navigate our ways towards the surface, into the light and up towards the clear skies, in our own way and in our own time. Roots hold me close. Wings set me free. May it be so. And our final hymn today is "The Spirit Lives to Set Us Free." And it's number 165 in our purple hymn books, 165. And it's one that's difficult to sit still and sing, I find. So I apologize for any jiggling around on your screens in advance. The Spirit lives to set us free. But now, some familiar closing words. May the road rise up to meet you. May the wind be always at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face. The rains fall soft upon your fields. And until we meet again, may God hold you in the palm of his, her hand. Amen.